The list of Russia's allies is already short to begin with, and now it's getting even shorter. One by one, Putin is losing friends that he once thought he could depend on in times of need. It's slowly dawning on him that starting a war against Ukraine was a colossal mistake, and it might just turn out to be his last mistake ever. The fighting in eastern Ukraine is intensifying. This battle has become the longest and most costly of the entire war, taking its toll on both sides. Despite Ukraine's historically low unemployment rate of 3.5%, there simply aren't enough workers available in many areas. The Russian offensive has had its fair share of setbacks and has failed to gain the momentum and success they anticipated. On the other hand, Ukraine is gearing up for a counter-offensive. The defense minister has announced that preparations are almost complete, and according to NATO, Ukraine's allies have delivered 98% of the promised combat vehicles. This is a significant development that could potentially shift the balance of power in the region. Let's go back to the beginning, to when the war started in 2022. Initially, it seemed like the entire world condemned and imposed sanctions on Russia for disrupting the peace. However, it's important to note that the whole world doesn't just consist of the West, despite what some might want you to believe. Now, let's get back on track. At the onset of the war, there were still a few nations that supported Russia, whether directly or indirectly. During a UN vote in early 2022, 141 countries voted in favor of ending the war and compelling Russia to immediately and unconditionally withdraw its military forces from Ukraine. However, 4 countries stood by Russia and voted against this resolution: Belarus, Eritrea, North Korea, and Syria. More significantly, 35 countries chose not to side with the West and abstained from the vote. Among them were superpowers like China, India, Pakistan, and Vietnam. Even some countries that initially voted in favor of the resolution, such as Serbia and Turkey, decided not to fully participate in the sanctions against Russia. In fact, at the start of the war, 2/3 of the world's population lived in countries that were either neutral or leaning towards Russia. But things have changed since then. Many of these countries have shifted their stance and are no longer as friendly towards Russia and Putin. In this video, we will explore what caused this change and why Putin is desperately seeking allies from every corner. Before we dive into that, I'd like to take a moment to ask for your support. Please hit that like button below. Your likes have made a tremendous impact on the algorithm, ensuring that YouTube serves my videos to a wider audience. I'm incredibly grateful for your support, so please take a second and hit the like button. Thank you. Let's begin by examining the situation in India. Initially, India chose to abstain from voting in the UN vote, and they did not support the package of sanctions proposed by the West. In fact, India continued trading with Russia and remained one of its main trading partners, which helped Putin withstand the impact of Western sanctions. However, things started to change in 2022 at the G20 summit, when both China and India began to distance themselves from Russia. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Chinese President Xi Jinping expressed their concerns about the war. Modi even emphasized that the current era is not about war. Moving into 2023, India has maintained its trade relations with Russia in terms of buying oil. However, it hasn't been the strongest ally of Russia. When the West announced a price cap on Russian energy sales, India made sure to comply with Western sanctions, trading with Russia at $60 per barrel. This indicates that India is not ready to completely abandon Russia yet, but it has started laying the groundwork for a potential future betrayal. This is certainly not good news for Putin. However, at the moment, he has more pressing concerns than India distancing itself, as other countries like Serbia are moving more rapidly and pushing away from Russia. At the beginning of the war, Serbia was considered one of Russia's closest allies. It wasn't just the Serbian leaders who supported Russia. Serbian citizens held pro-Russia rallies in the country. When the West imposed sanctions on Russia, Serbian leaders publicly blamed NATO for the war instead of Russia. This may seem a bit odd, but we'll uncover the true reason behind it shortly. The support from Serbia and its citizens made sense given the close historic ties between Russia and Serbia. In fact, the two nations often refer to each other as brothers. Additionally, Serbia shares Russia's animosity towards NATO. When Kosovo declared independence from Serbia and NATO sided with Kosovo, it further fueled Serbia's support for Russia against NATO. Therefore, Serbia did not comply with Western sanctions and continued to purchase Russian oil at a discounted price. However, the dynamics started to shift when the Serbian president made a surprisingly strong statement, expressing that they could not support Russia's invasion of Ukraine. He emphasized that Crimea belongs to Ukraine and will continue to do so. This statement came as a result of Putin using the UN recognition of Kosovo's independence referendum to justify recognizing Ukrainian cities captured by Russia as part of Russia. This move did not sit well with Serbians, who felt betrayed by Putin's indirect recognition of Kosovo's independence. Consequently, Serbia's relationship with Russia began to deteriorate. Furthermore, Serbia is more economically dependent on the EU for trade than on Russia. It also receives substantial funding from the EU. Therefore, it is in Serbia's best interest to side with the group that benefits its people the most. Considering this, it becomes clear that as Russia loses the war it started, Serbia is aligning itself with a side that aligns with its economic interests. Another country that recently shifted its stance due to EU funding is Hungary. Hungary has been a staunch supporter of Russia and has been against Western sanctions from the beginning. However, the country is now reconsidering its position. The reason behind this change is quite apparent. Hungary wants EU funding, and the easiest way to secure it is by aligning with the side favored by the EU. Another country that has taken a surprising U-turn in its support for Russia is Turkey. Just like the countries we discussed earlier, Turkey initially defied Western sanctions. In fact, it had become a haven for Russian wealth and a significant center for sourcing goods over the past year, benefiting from the close personal relationship between Putin and President Erdogan. Turkey's exports to Russia experienced a substantial increase, rising from $5.8 billion to $9.3 billion in 2022. However, out of nowhere, Turkey abruptly halted the transit of sanctioned goods to Russia. This sudden change in stance came as a result of mounting pressure from the European Union and the United States, who were pressuring their allies to support the measures imposed in response to President Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine. In compliance with these sanctions, the Turkish government ordered a complete halt to the transit of such goods through its territory, effective from March 1st. This move left Russia with one less ally it could depend on. Even with the few remaining allies that Russia still has, Putin cannot expect much support. China, for instance, has refused to provide arms or funding to Russia for the continuation of this war. On the other hand, Pakistan has stepped in and supplied Ukraine with weapons to bolster its defense in the ongoing conflict. Many experts believe that Pakistan's decision was most likely made in close cooperation with the United States. As Russia finds itself falling behind in this war, Putin is once again reminded of a famous truth in the realm of geopolitics. There are no permanent friends or enemies, only permanent interests. The shifting dynamics of alliances and friendships emphasize that countries prioritize their own national interests above all else. It is crucial to understand that geopolitics is a complex interplay of interests, alliances, and rivalries. The evolving dynamics of international relations can have profound consequences for countries involved in conflicts. As viewers, it is essential to remain informed and vigilant, comprehending the intricacies of these geopolitical shifts and their potential impact on global stability. Thank you for watching. Be sure to subscribe and enable notifications to receive alerts for future videos.